two kids in a dorm room created Facebook. Were you ready for that? No. So it's how do we become more agile? How do we deal with these new forces? What are you doing in terms of social media? Do you have a policy? Can you move forward? Are you using it? Does it fit within your business? That becomes a very important issue. What are you doing with people bringing computers into work, right? Now we've got these IT guys that are saying, oh no, we can't do that, it's not secure. And then you get the rest of the business saying, hey, I got to get work done, right? And so we see this change and this question of how do we pick up that technology adoption and how do we do that in a very effective way? Now these four forces, right? The macroeconomic conditions I can't control, what's happening in the workplace which I can control and think about and be prepared for, what we're doing about business models which we can adjust to and use techniques like nearshoring to get to, and what are we doing about pace of technology adoption where we decide which technologies we're going to move forward with and which ones are going to move around us. Those are things we can control. So focus on this, and we realize that we have a lot of change that's going on. In addition to that, what's happening in software is we've got a consumerization of IT. And this consumerization of IT, and as you can tell, we haven't really evolved much. Right? We're still hunched back and looking over at something, in this case, a screen. But we haven't evolved much. And this is the piece that's moving really quickly. Social, mobile, cloud, analytics, UC, video. These are trends that are going to be with us for the next 10 years. They're not going away. In fact, it's the convergence of these factors that are going to create new opportunities. This is the innovation that our businesses want us to get to. This is the innovation that we're trying to get funding for. What's happening with mobile? Well, devices. Device proliferation's everywhere, right? Almost everybody has a smartphone. Not one. Almost everybody's about to get two smartphones. You get the BlackBerry, which you take to work, then you got that other thing you use for fun, right? We're all carrying two devices. How many of you guys are carrying two devices? Shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. We've got two devices. So we see smartphone adoption. Now, the power inside a smartphone today is 10 times the power we had to put a man on the moon. It's in your hands, right? This is how we're interacting. This is how we're engaging. What we're building towards in terms of innovation is going to be the mobile form factor. That is going to be the predominant form factor of how we access any of these services in the next 3 years. Social, everywhere. I think that list was called in 2010. It's probably multiplied. Are we in a boom? I don't know. But I can tell you there are a lot of companies being funded in social. What does it mean? We're connecting with people. We're taking advantage of parts of the internet that wasn't there. We'll talk a little bit later about what all these different technologies are. We'll go through the big 6 and give you an idea of what's happening. These are business models. These are things that we're innovating to connect with people. This is not a fad. I mean, we have moved beyond. If you look at adoption of technologies, 50 million was the number to say, hey, we've hit it. This has gone big. Like TV, like radio took 38, TV took 13, Facebook did it in 9 months. That's massive adoption. So this isn't a fad. This isn't something that's going away. It's not by age group either. There are more people above 55 on certain social group sites than there are in people under 20. It is not about an age group. It is about a connection. It's about a community that's being created. I mean, this is Twitter, right? I mean, you post something, it's real time. You see it up there, right? You know, I did something on here. There's the hashtag. I'm sure Kirk would be really happy if you'd use this hashtag and say, I'm here at this conference, right? It's a way to advertise, to say what's going on. You know, Facebook, right? We have it. We have our own page. You can use it from a business perspective. We're selling research, right? So for us, it's important, right? So you're looking at, hey, here's what we do. Here's the latest research pieces. Quora is an interesting tool. You ask a question, and you say, well, here you go. How many CIOs are going to be here and the business execs, right? What's going to happen? You ask a question, you hope someone in your network answers it, right? That's the whole point of a network. And it's in a formalized basis, and there's a content management system there, right? Video, big. Use video to go carry something. Here I'm just, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's talking about something, right? You're showing video. And video is, in fact, the second most searched search engine is YouTube right now. Video's hot, right? Use it for training. Use it to pass information. Do it a demo, right? It's a way to communicate and collaborate with your different teams out there, right? And then, of course, Foursquare, here's where I am. You know, LinkedIn. How many of you guys have a LinkedIn account? Why? It's your resume, right? You got to protect yourself. You got to keep it up to date. LinkedIn, very interesting tool. When you scan LinkedIn at a company and everyone's changing their resumes all of a sudden, what's happening? Layoffs. mergers, something's going on, right? Very, very public. Companies don't realize this, but it's like telling the whole world, hey, we're all looking for a job, right? So LinkedIn, a very interesting tool, right? How many of you guys have a Facebook page? Okay, keep with your friends, try to keep that in a small group. How many of you guys have Twitter? How many of you guys use Twitter? All right, so we've got a very, very savvy audience. You're going to have some really good hits there. So tracking, Kirk. So yeah, so use these. I mean, these are tools to connect. I mean, everybody in here should be connected somehow, right? This is the community Kirk was talking about. How do we connect with each other and share these learnings as we go through this experience? But every business process can be broken into 3 areas, right? There's the stuff that's commoditized in the middle. Anybody can do it, right? People are like, oh no, email, I can't give that away. Yeah, you can. Right? What are we doing with processing? Yes, you can give that away. That's commoditized. Payroll. If you're still doing payroll, how many of you guys are still doing your own payroll? Right? Okay, good. Right? Oh, 1. Okay, you're in the back. How big are you?
72 people.
Oh, okay, 72 people. All right. You might find a cost savings in there. So, but you're still comparing and benchmarking cost. But that's commoditized. Most people aren't doing their own payroll. It's going out to a provider or something like that. Now there's mission critical. That's the stuff you're not going to give away. That's your trade secrets, right? You got to figure out which one of those are important to do. It's going to be expensive, but you'd rather do it instead of giving it to someone else. And then you've got innovative, right? We're spending too much time on commoditized. We're spending too much time on mission critical. How do we free up that so we can get to the innovation that we talked about? All that cool stuff that was up there in the beginning. And this is why we use this model when we work with our clients around business models, around when you do things like nearshoring and when you push stuff out. So think about it on the first level, which is the complexity of work. Are you giving out simple rules? Are these complex algorithms? Are you giving away decision making, right? Very, very important. So if you got simple rules in a structure, yeah, you can give that to someone. It's typically a commoditized process. If you're giving complex algorithms, it might not be mission critical yet, but it might be something that you're willing to let people make some decisions against. You're going to give them some rules and some parameters, and you're going to trust them to make those decisions for you. If you go all the way down to, you know, the combination of complexity of work and differentiation and degree of control, what you now have are multiple ways to think about when you nearshore. So let's take levels of differentiation. Might be quality rules all the way to centers of excellence. Right? How much are you willing to give up? Now, if there's a capacity on your provider, and they're like the expert in an area, for example, they might be the expert in, you know, IT staff augmentation or expert in mobile development, and they've got a center of excellence, yeah, you might do that because it's going to take you 3 years to get there. How do you figure out when that occurs? Now, degree of control is the other one. People always say, oh, yeah, I'm comfortable with giving that up. You have to ask yourself really hard. If you give someone a task, okay, I can trust them. Are you going to give them a whole end-to-end business process? If you are, how are you going to put that contract together? Is there a service level agreement in that? What are you measuring against? Right? How many of you heard about Amazon and their outage last week? Right? Is that scary or what? Right? Well, there are a couple reasons behind that. You can read about it, but you know, you thought everything was up and running, but maybe you were supposed to put an instance in every one of their data centers to keep things up and running. Apparently, a few startups didn't do that, right? But that's service level agreement. But you know, guess what? They were out, but they're still better than, their uptime is still better than what most IT teams can deliver. They're doing 99.5. Your IT teams would be lucky to do 90, 92. If they got to 95, I'd be pretty excited. Right? So it's stuff like that. So are you going to give the whole business model away to someone? What part of it might be? Maybe it's a part you're not engaged in. And so when I look at this, and I'm going to see if this laser pointer works. Oops. Let's see. When I look at this, I think the important thing is if you're starting to hit around these 2 areas in the second ring, you're ready to outsource something. You're ready to nearshore something. You're ready to give away a process. And it's really a question about what in your business do you want to give away so that you can think about innovation, so you can think about all the other cool stuff we talked about. Or you might have a partner and that might be building that cool stuff for you. This is not just about augmentation. This is not just about cutting costs. You're looking at partners who can go out and expand your capabilities. So when you look at Apple, Apple doesn't build anything, right? Apple trusts its capacity to someone else to build and manufacture to its standards. It knows the metrics. It knows what it's measuring against. In fact, you know, most PC manufacturers actually outsource service. They give it to UPS or FedEx. You mail it out, there's a facility, those guys go out and fix everything, they're certified techs, and they mail it back. They don't want to deal with it, right? So that's something to think about in terms of these models. Then you can sit down and think about roadmaps. And we do a lot of stuff around IT strategy and IT roadmaps. And this is really about thinking about your org structure, right? What's going to happen? What are the change required? We all talk about nearshoring. We all talk about putting stuff out in terms of different processes. But it's important to think about the organizational dynamics. How do you build that strategy? And then, of course, tying back to the processes, because you're going to interlace some of the processes you keep. So the mission-critical ones are going to interlace with the commoditized ones, and you have process maps. This is a process problem. This is not a technology problem. And so your job is to figure out how to link this and bring this together. And then, of course, there are technologies that help you, that enable you to become successful. And, of course, the last piece is building the networks, building the social networks to tie back, because you still want to build those relationships with your nearshore provider, with who else you're partnering with. It's very important, and that's one of the keys to success, is thinking about this around those 4 dimensions. And then, of course, you can think about when you do this, right? There are certain times that business models require nearshoring. There are certain times when it's geographic specific, right? You're entering a market. You want to keep it within that time zone. You're doing rapid development where you need the teams really close with each other. Not only close in proximity, but close in skill set and cultural factors. And then, of course, if you're doing some modernization efforts, you're really looking at figuring out how to tie this back so that you're running 2 teams at once. One team might be holding the fort, the other team might be doing the innovation, and there are different ways to look at how you go about this. Cloud is interesting. We talk about cloud because you can use cloud and nearshoring at the same time. What cloud's allowing you to do is create very, very rapid implementation and innovation cycles with your partners. So you could stand up instances without waiting for the data center to get built, installing the hardware, making sure everything's like optimized, making sure all the wiring in the back is up. That's like 3 months. Right? If you're working with a partner that has a cloud facility, whether it's private or public, that means you can test out innovations right away. And when we look at cloud, the problem is there's so many definitions about cloud. What we tried to do is break it down to things that make sense. The bottom is infrastructure, right? That's your data center. That's the stuff you don't want to see, right? The middle part is really thinking about orchestrating and creating things, right? And that's the development as a service layer and the platform as a service layer. The top part is the applications. That's how you consume things. Those are what you do to get to access an application, whether it's within your entity or within a private cloud. So this is important to look at, right? And so when you think about cloud and tying that together, then you can have some adoption strategies, right? This is another way to modernize. This is a way to take advantage of the cloud computing capabilities and tie it to what you want to do.